All right, it looks like we're live. Zoom fixed whatever problem it had last week because I didn't do anything. So that's amazing. Or maybe YouTube fixed it. I don't know. Anyway, yay. Okay, I'm much happier. I was going to be really sad that this wasn't going to work. Today is Thursday, June 4th, and this is a meeting for our design and user experience related items for Backdrop CMS. Before we get to the agenda, I'd like to do some quick introductions. So if everybody could say what your name is, where you're from, and if you want to share something with us that's not currently on the agenda, that would be great. Luke, you're in my top left square. Would you like to go first?
Great. My name is Luke McCormick. I'm in San Ramon, California. I'm a web product management consultant and heavily interested in open source and involves it. I'll throw a little tidbit in for the design meeting. Like I briefly considered a career as a graphic designer, like when I was right out of college, and then realized I didn't have the aesthetic for it. But I'm very interested in design issues, even if I'm not all that great at it.
That's great. Joseph, do you want to go next?
I am Joseph from Las Vegas, and I don't know, I'm a backend developer. I'm here to just see how I can help with design stuff.
Nice. I'm Jen Lampton. I'm from Oakland, California. I also spent a very brief amount of time thinking I was a web designer. This is back when I thought that being someone who built websites was the same thing as being someone who designed websites. And I realized pretty quickly that I really liked building them and really did not have any ability to design them. And so my business when I first started was called Generation Web Design. And it now is called Generation Web Development because I came to that realization. So I went through sort of the same thing where I was like, hey, design. Oh, wait, I can't do that. Never mind. So funny anecdotes. Okay, back to the agenda. Theme initiative update. Very exciting. We just checked on that today, and the initiative for making Backdrop usable without requiring custom theming passed. I have a personal beef with the word theming because it's not a word. And so I tried several times to think of an alternative to what to call this, but all of my alternatives ended up being very wordy and yucky. So anyway, just gonna put that out there. I'm grumpy about the word theming, but I will use it anyway because I couldn't think of something better.
I totally relate to that.
I also have a problem with training. Like, I think it should be training workshop as a noun, and you can't say a training. Like,
Oh.
I don't know. It's an adverb. It's describing the thing. It's not the thing itself. I don't know. But anyway, some grammar issues from my traumatic school days, I suppose.
HM machine.
Luke, do you want to give any kind of update on the initiative?
I guess. I'm delighted to hear that it passed. I guess technically I'm in the running to be the initiative lead on that.
I think we will lean on you to be a lead unless someone else steps up to do it. Yeah. Just so we have someone telling us what to do.
Yeah, I'm enthusiastic about that. I've been exploring the worlds of competitive web content management systems, such as WordPress comes up again and again, but also things like Joomla and Ghost and various other things, and cool. Wix and Squarespace. So without getting without jumping into it, I think there's going to be at least kind of a two-step process of sort of determining what the end product looks like what kind of choices we're talking about. And I think that's the hard part, because I think once we know the question, the answers just will work themselves out. But we'll see. Maybe I'm being too optimistic about that.
So since our last design meeting, I was contacted by somebody via my contact form on my website about a Drupal theme called Glossy. And this is a theme that is not available on Drupal.org. It is something that like some individual person made. They created an install profile. They created a bunch of like a suite of modules that's recommended in order to use it. The theme has a lot of custom integration with stuff like that. It's a lot more like a WordPress theme in that sense, that it contains a bunch of features. One of the things that it contains, which I thought was really interesting, is a page builder that is very much like Wix or Squarespace, or what, you know, how they let you lay out individual pages. And we tried to tackle that a little bit with layouts, but we definitely did it from the back end perspective of like, this is architecture for the site. Whereas something like WordPress, or not WordPress, Squarespace does it sort of from the front end perspective of like, grab a thing and put it where you want it. And this tries to sort of bridge that gap. And Layout Builder is a different module in Drupal, or Page Builder is a different module in Drupal. There's something called Page Builder that I think is in Drupal 8, but this was a Drupal 7 contrib module called Page Builder, and I'm not sure those two things are related at all. I haven't done that much digging into it. But this person said, I really need to move to Backdrop. I've contacted the creator of this theme. He's not interested in making a Backdrop version. Can I hire you to port it? It's GPL, therefore I can give you the code and you can fork it in the same way you could have forked, you know, a WordPress theme that's only available through a paid service. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm going to spend some time, I haven't looked at it yet, but looking at the way that it works, I think is really interesting in terms of what the experience is for the person who's using it, because this person is now under the impression that they wouldn't be able to do a Drupal or Backdrop site without having these kind of front end content placement tools, which is I don't know. I was curious about it from like a what does Backdrop core need to do perspective, but also like how hard would it be to port one of these Drupal 7 installation profile plus theme plus module plus whatever packages that created that experience. Because if we could get that experience in Backdrop even without it in a core, that might be sufficient. So anyway. Some interesting stuff.
Could you create a
so-
module like that that's just an alternative layout renderer?
Yeah, so I haven't looked into how Page Builder works yet. But I would, that's sort of what I was envisioning, is like the way Panels in Place Editor worked. It was just a different renderer that worked on the front end. Instead of just rendering the page, it would render like an interface for changing it. But I want to know what it is about Page Builder that, like, user experience wise, that people really like. And if we could build a in-place editor that worked more like Page Builder, because I know people did not really like the Panels in-place editor, I think that could be a win too. So I'm looking forward to installing the profile and seeing how it expects you to use it, like sort of from a user perspective, before I look at technically how it's built, and see if, as I'm using it, I can envision that technically from a Backdrop code architecture rather than Drupal 7 code architecture. So.
Fantastic. Would it be too much to ask if I request that you put a link to that in the forums article for the theme initiative? Just to...
Yeah, maybe I'll just add a forum post describing just what I said, maybe more concise. I can't find it.
Yeah.
It was called, so the install profile was called CMS. That was really interesting.
It's funny that they jumped on that. During the 90s, there was an internet tools company that called themselves FTP Software.
It's called.
And I remember talking with them once when there was something called Internet World, and their software had nothing to do with FTP, and I was so offended by that, because it's like, come on, that's a real word that actually means something, and you're not doing it all over. And then I lived that experience a few years later when I was project managing something called PhotoWiki. It had nothing to do with wikis. So, you know, I ended up living that experience myself.
That sounds like how we got JavaScript.
It is exactly how.
Did you guys see that tweet a couple weeks ago that said Java is to JavaScript as Corona is to coronavirus.
No, that's awesome though.
I like that one. Okay, so the company is called Super Themes, Sooper. And there's
I've heard of
one
them.
guy who's like a super prolific Drupal developer who's been around for like 13 years or something, who maintains this theme and its suite of contributed stuff. And it looks like the theme itself is what people buy. And then the installation profile and the modules and all of that stuff is available on Drupal.org as freeware, which I thought was also interesting. So he's got like community support on all of the bits and pieces that make it work together that people might also be using on other projects, and then the like actual pretty part people buy.
Yeah, I actually found something like that yesterday when they released Drupal 9. Because I mean, one of the things that's always frustrated me throughout the whole Drupal experience is that on Drupal.org you can search for base themes as a checkbox item in the theme search, even though most of the themes you find are base themes. And I've desperately always wanted the inverse of that. I want to search for things that aren't base themes, that are ready to go, and that's not a choice. But I actually found that yesterday because if you searched for Drupal 9 compatible themes, rather than the thousands that you normally find, there were just a few dozen. and I was able to look at every single one of them. And about half of them were actually what I was looking for, maintained, ready to go Drupal themes.
That's great.
That I'd never been able to find in years and years of searching previously. So that'll actually be like a channel of kind of the considerations. Like, okay, here's what out of the box ready to go Drupal themes look like. It's funny, there's still not actually the full experience. Like the closest I get to the full experience is if there was a distribution for Drupal Commerce, the Drupal Commerce distribution. And if you install the distribution, you got a fantastic looking homepage, like a fully themed site. And it's one of the few things I've ever been able to find like that. And WordPress does it out of the box, and I feel like we should. We should have something that when you click start, it's glossy and ready to go. The out of the box initiative has now done that for Drupal. The umami theme and sample content looks fantastic, and yeah, we need something like that.
Yep, agree. Anything else on theme initiative thoughts?
A million things, but it all can wait.
Many. Any you want to share? Anything urgent? Anything
No,
exciting?
No.
Okay.
No.
Also on the theme section here, we have 2 other ongoing tasks about ways that we can have all of our theme maintainers make better themes by improving the style guide and recommending that anyone who has a contributed theme run through the style guide. Also making it easier to preview themes, maybe using something like Tugboat or something like ZenCI or a different site that just lets you switch and demo themes. Perhaps demoing on mobile. All of these great ideas we had in the past, we still need to make happen.
Again, my experience is that WordPress does that really well. In fact, I looked into like developing WordPress themes, and they have like a tool that does exactly this, where it spits up a page and has you see every commonly themed element to make sure that your theme has those covered.
Yeah, I wonder if so this is the kind of thing where like you would think as a contributed theme, you would hope that people would have installed the style guide module and used it. But that's the kind of thing that is really useful on any custom theme too. And so if you're trying to count the use case for putting that in core, right now, if everybody is using a custom theme, it's like 100%, like 99% or something, right? But yeah, I don't know. Something that's a developer only tool is also putting like developer needs first, which I'm not sure is something that would be a candidate for core. But I think there's an issue somewhere about it. Might be worth revisiting.
Well,
So
I
I
think
think
this
it-
one's a little like this issue is a little more connected between all the groups because like Drupal has been theme like one of the common complaints for Drupal for a really long time is it's hard to theme. And so if we made it easier to theme, then there would be, in theory, more contributed themes, and then that would help the end users. So
yeah.
I don't know. This is like one of those issues where kind of all the people have to be helped together.
Yeah. Uh, trying to find that backdrop issue. Add style guide to core. 3240. Just gonna drop it in the agenda. That might be another one that could be worth revisiting in the developer meeting too. So I sort of agree. It's a chicken and egg thing. Like if we don't make it easier to theme, we're not going to get good themes. If we don't have good themes, it's not going to be good for people to use. So it's sort of an end user tool. I mean, I don't know that style guide and core is going to, it's, yeah, but I think it might help. I think having it there also sets a precedent where it's like, are you building a theme? Make sure everything on this page looks good. People will be like, oh, I know that's there. And then they'll come back to it later.
So I mean, my instinct is to think of this as being included as part of the initiative that for the usable without theming initiative. Is that scope creeping or does it
No,
like?
so I think like anything that you feel like falls under this umbrella is worth pushing on. And I'm not sure we're going to get all of these things done by the next release, but if we move any of them forward, that's going to be a win for the initiative, and the initiative can carry on.
Okay.
And if at some point you don't want to be the lead anymore, we could push it to someone else. But I think having it, you know, saying like this is something that's important to backdrop community, I think is something that is good, regardless of who's leading it or when it gets which piece is done.
Your cat wants to get out.
He's
Oh.
not making any noises yet, but you are correct. Cats really don't like closed doors. Anytime I close a door, they get grumpy. Oh, he's after his toy.
Oh.
There's a mouse up there, where it's a possum or some stuffed animal. I don't know. Put it there to keep it away from the dog. But all right, moving on from theme initiative. Web design tasks, backdropcms.org needs a little love. If anyone wants to work on it, the code for backdropcms.org is open source. I know Peter's been doing a bunch of work on it. I think Doc Wilmot's been working on it. Nate's been doing a little bit of work on things like project module, which are part of backdropcms.org. And we have a whole suite of issues in their own queue. It's under the backdrop ops group. If anyone wants to pitch in there, we're always looking for help. Product itself, it looks like we have a couple of issues that we've called out and talked about before. We want to improve the update process. The user experience there is quote unquote wonky. We want to make it easier for people to find recommended modules. So we've sort of set up promoted modules on backdropcms.org, but we want them to appear as promoted modules on the in-application installer as well. And there are a lot of little pieces that are required in order to make that happen. Changes to project module, changes to backdrop core, changes to backdropcms.org. So trying to get all of those knitted together is going to be tricky, but we should do it. And then we've had this issue.
Wait, I want to actually,
Sure.
is there an issue number for the update process wonky? Because I totally agree with that.
Yes. I looked for this last time and I didn't put the link in here. This is a Gregory issue. It was a user experience issue. Let's see what happens if I put in wonky. No.
It's worth a shot.
I think it's called like module update. here's one. So this is issue number 4304. So this is something that Gregory found in the process of updating a module where there's information on a page that was funny. So I'm just going to look at other modules around or other issues around the same time. See if you put the other ones in here. Auto updates, no. I don't know. I'll try and pull them all together and make a meta that lists them all. That I think might help us. But there was also something where it was immediate, like, so Gregory created this issue, and like a month later, I went through like with a client being like, you can update your own site. You just go like this and this and this. And I'm like, this is really weird. And then Gregory's like, I told you this a month ago. And I was like, I know, I didn't look at it. And so then I think I went back and found all of his issues, but I didn't group them together or make them easy to find or document them anywhere. But it's something that, especially now that we're promoting core updates with update button, it would be great if we could sort of figure that out, because right now the update, there's like update modules page and update themes page, but like everything shows up on both pages, including core. So trying to figure out like how to clean that up. So there's all these issues about like, where should we put the updates page? And then should we have 3 separate projects for different updates? So yeah, there's a bunch of issues about reorganizing the menu. Yeah, I don't remember what they're called. I'll have to look them up later. More. And then there's this one issue we've been working on for a really long time, issue number 2353, which has like 100 comments or something, and it's about moving a button on a page. There's a whole bunch of really strong feelings about it, where this is the database log page. So if you have the DB log module on, it tells you all the stuff that's going on. And on that page, there's a button at the top that's like clear log messages. And most of the buttons we have on the top of the pages in Backdrop Core are search or filter buttons. They're not potentially dangerous buttons. So I think the first thing we did was like put it in a field set or like move it or something. And as soon as we made a change to it, everybody was like, no, you moved my button. And so then it turns out everybody has really strong feelings about where the button should go and how we should make it like less dangerous for people to don't accidentally delete your logs if you didn't mean to or whatever. And I think we have a consensus, or at least we got close a couple of comments ago. So that one is labeled as milestone candidate bug, but nobody has confirmed that they want it in the next milestone. So it's something that apparently a lot of people have thoughts on because they've added comments, but nobody thinks it's important enough that we have to put it in the next bug fix release. So yeah, anyway, that one's been in our user experience queue for a while. It'd be nice to get something done. Come back to it later. And if you're particularly interested in things we're working on to improve the user experience, we have a tag on GitHub, 2 square brackets with the letters U and X inside them, indicate that a module will affect the user's experience. If you're passionate about user experience, you can search the queue for that string and find everything that we think will make Backdrop easier to use. We have a handful of design related issues. Some of them relate to the basis theme. In particular, there's one that adds some white space below the hero block that seems to be interfering when you put the hero block in other places or when you put other things near the hero block. And so we have a pull request that fixes the problem, but then there's an underlying problem of like, how do you introduce CSS changes that are backwards compatible? And so there's a longer issue on that. I think this is fixed. There's a note here that says this depends on color module not taking over the settings form. Joseph, do you know if we fixed that? I have a feeling we fixed that. Don't remember.
I am not 100% sure about that.
Okay.
Hang on. Where is the?
I didn't have
Issue
an
number?
issue link in here, but we can look it up. Let's see. Color module settings form. Rework color module. It's in there.
Hmm. I should probably go take a look at that list of issues again, now that the theme inheritance is fixed.
Let's see. Closed issues. Why is it so hard to find things on GitHub?
It's because we have too many open issues.
Well, I'm searching closed issues. It's still hard to find things. We have too many issues.
It's a sub issue of the issue that it's hard to find things in the universe.
It's hard to find things in general.
We don't think it is because Google does it so well. And I've had many discussions with clients over the years where they'll ask for a feature and I'll be like, "No, it's really hard." And they'll say, "Why? It works like that when I do it on Google." I'm like, "Do you think that means it's easy?"
Yeah, Google has something like 20,000 programmers. It's like,
Exactly. Just because Google doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, usually the opposite.
I'm positive there was an issue for this, but I definitely cannot find it right now. Oh, here we go. Allow color settings to be separated into multiple field sets. Not quite it. That one's fixed.
that one was a while ago. I don't think that's, hang on.
I'm sure it had something to do with a field set. I don't know. I can't find it. Reading this issue. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to do some digging. But if we want to add settings to the theme settings form that are not color module settings, we need to make sure all of the settings can get along nicely in one form. And I know we talked about it a bunch of times, so I assume there's an issue, but it might not be. And then let's see. We have a section here on user experience studies. I don't have any specific updates on those in general, but I keep thinking that it will be beneficial to make more video recordings of people experiencing Backdraft. And I have a pretty good use case coming up. My mom has a static HTML site that she has been editing for the last 30 years that is on a very old server at her university, and they want to retire her server. And her options were to move to Drupal 8, which is what their system is using on their newer system, or not have a website anymore. And my mom, bless her heart, said, "I refuse to learn Drupal 8." But she probably wouldn't be able to tell it from Drupal 7. So I appreciate her support. And then she said, "Hey, can you help me with my website?" And so my plan is to copy her static site to a server that it can just host it on. And then in the summer, when she's done with all of her school stuff, set her up with a Backdraft site. And so she's very technically skilled, but hasn't seen any kind of interface for WordPress, Drupal, Backdraft, any of that. And so I thought that would be a really fantastic use case for user experience, because she's the kind of person I want to like instinctively know how to use Backdraft. But yeah, watching her pain, I think will help me at least find stuff that I overlook all the time in terms of user experience, but that I think might still be important. So I'm hoping to use her as a guinea pig this summer. I want to build an initial site for her that's very close to what she has and give it to her and let her use it for a while. And then I want to so I'll give videos of like using it. And then I want her, when she asks me if she can do something different, I want to tell her how to do it and have her do it herself. So she'll like move into sort of an architectural after using it for a while. So I'm hoping to get 2 sets of user experience videos out of that. I'm excited.
Yeah, fantastic.
Let's see. We also have some items on here that we don't usually talk about very often, that we do have some print design tasks in the backdrop cms.org queue if anyone is interested in helping us with a banner, which was more important when there were live events to go to, but hopefully there will be again soon.
What was in Baltimore?
Yeah, there was going to be the nonprofit technology conference, but it was canceled because coronavirus. So yeah, we could do those. That would be good. No rush anymore though. And then yeah, ideas about sticker design. This might not be necessarily related to the design meeting, but I was recommended, there's a company called, oh geez, I can't remember, something shirts. That essentially would allow us to upload our design, and then people could order shirts off of the website and they would ship them like one at a time. And it was recommended by Software Freedom Conservancy. So I think they're like friendly to open source nonprofit tech savvy groups, which sounded nice. But I don't know if they do hoodies, and I don't know the quality of their products. So we'll have to do a little like, part of the reason we picked the t-shirt and the hoodie we did is because we know that they are beloved by people in the community, and I wouldn't want to switch to something that's like, oh, this is a shirt I'm never going to wear because it's itchy or something like that. But anyway, an interesting option in the future so that we wouldn't have to handle the merchandise ourselves, which I think is a good idea. But yeah, then that also would open up an opportunity to changing anything about the design of the way our shorts or hoodies are put together. So
I don't know if this is the one, but I discovered Bonfire last week in discussions with Badcamp.
yeah, it's
And
called,
I don't know if they're politically in the same category, but they just seem to have great capabilities. I was all excited about the idea of making t-shirts.
I wrote it down. It's called Spreadshirt. So it's like spreadsheet, but it's a spreadshirt. So if you like spreadsheets, like me, you instantly like it, even though if you don't know if it's any good. Yeah, and they I think they also have a lot of interesting capabilities, but yeah, worth looking into. And the other one was called Bonfire. You said, do they do things other than shirts?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna add that to my collection of related bookmarks. Okay, got it. It's funny, I add things to bookmarks on my computer all the time, but I never like go to the bookmarks to get something I visited before. So I'm like, it's there if I need it, but then if I need it, I just like Google it later. All right, and that's it for the design agenda, which is good because it is the end of our time for the design meeting. Does anyone have any final things they want to mention?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I was talking with someone recently and they were asking how to do a kind of like a slide behind header where instead of basically the header scrolling up, the rest of the page just comes up and covers the header.
Like a parallaxy thing?
Sort of, I guess.
Okay.
Except the header doesn't actually move. It's just kind of position fixed and then has a lower Z index than the rest of the page.
Okay.
And I was thinking about how I would do that. And I think I'm going to need a custom layout for this, but I was wondering how you would do that.
With like a region that's in the
Right.
fixed area?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the fixed area was a like image, like a background image, I would just stick it on whatever, HTML or body or something and leave it. But if it's something that has to contain content and you want to put content in it with the layout system, I would definitely recommend a custom layout with a region that is fixed. And I don't know if it's going to be like this for your whole site or if it's just going to be like this for the homepage or something. But if it's going to be the whole site, you might not need a custom layout. You might be able to get away with using the current layout template. Like if you have one that has all of the right number of regions, but they're in the wrong places, you could like take the top region or something like that and use that as your fixed region. And then you just need a new template. You wouldn't need a new info file.
Yeah, the idea was kind of to like have it on any website. Basically do it in a way where I don't have to write code.
Yeah.
Which I think a layout is the correct way to do that if I want to do that.
Because you aren't going to know what any of those other websites are doing with any of those other regions. So yeah, I definitely would recommend custom layout for that.
All right.
That's interesting. I haven't seen that. I would be curious to see what that looks like when you're done with it.
Okay. We were kind of just doing it as a hypothetical. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and wrap the design meeting. And if you guys are going to be in the developer meeting, I'll see you in a few minutes.